warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat siang, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all participants of today's guest lecture. Let us express our gratitude to Almighty God for its wise grace that we are graded here today for this guest lecture with the theme Sustainable Infrastructure Development, Challenge and Opportunity. My name is Genever Zeto, and my partner is
Sevia.
And we are honored to be your MC for today's event. This event is a collaboration between the Faculty of Civil and Environmental Engineering of Bandung Institute of Technology and the Faculty of Engineering of Universitas Persada Indonesia Y.A.I.
Before we begin, I kindly invite everyone to stand for the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now, I would like to invite the Rector of Universitas Persada Indonesia Y.A.I, Profesor Insinyur Sri Astuti Indriati, MS PhD, to deliver the opening remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semuanya. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon everyone. First of all, of course, I would like to thank God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, for the opportunity and have been giving us the blessing and mercy so then we can attend this today's agenda as in the very good conditions. Your Excellency, the Board of Management of the University and the Board of Director of Faculty of Engineering and distinguished Professor Krishna Suryanto Pribadi, and the Dean of Faculty of Engineering and all the Vice Deans as well as the Head of Departments within the Faculty of Engineering UPAI. Honorable our guest Associate Professor Tong Kwan Chan from Latrobe University, Australia. And honorable our guests from Professor Chuan Chen from Sichuan University, China. Our students from Faculty of Engineering and my students from other faculty within the Universitas Persada Indonesia, Y.A.I. So today we are gathered here actually to attend this international lecture entitled Sustainable Infrastructure Development, Challenges and Opportunities. This is part of our internationalization's vision for the university. So we thank for all of you to come to this agenda. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and students, various forms of infrastructure developments today considered a success in Indonesia. Indonesia's infrastructure development ranking has increased from number 72 to position number 60 in the year of, I think it's about 8 years ago, in Asia. And despite the progress, of course, we also find and facing many challenges. This is why today we are going to discuss about the challenge and opportunities. This challenge actually mainly for Indonesia related to the disparities in developments between the Java and outside of the Java island, and then between the west as well as the east, and then between the cities and the villages, as well as between the poor and the advantaged people. So one of the main challenges in the geography of development in Indonesia is the disparities in development itself between the Western and Eastern that we can see. For example, data said the Eastern regions such as Papua and Maluku are still lagging behind in infrastructure development. And they also lack of access to education, and then they lack also to the access to economics opportunities. This disparity is largely due to the geographical factors such as varied topography, scattered settlement patterns, and limited accessibility in some areas. The development of adequate transportations and communication infrastructure is the key to connecting remote areas with economic centers, allowing to a smoother exchange of goods, of services, and investment. So, ladies and gentlemen, the students, some of the gaps that we must to address through the infrastructure development, there are a few that we can do actually, whether through the infrastructure development for economics activities or infrastructure development for the benefit of the most of the people. So the second one, infrastructure development requires at least, let's say, 4,700 trillion in fund, and the government only can provide for 1/3 of that. So from that point, that's why then we, of course, need to do collaboration or need the participation of the private sector, and also the BUMN. So we need to collab with them, because the government, of course, cannot handle all the funds themselves, and they have to also rely on the private sectors to help. In the last 10 years, many infrastructure development have been constructed. And currently, the Ministry of PUPR has prioritized infrastructure development in 5 areas. In the area of transportation, water resources, and then communications, energy, and housing. And the Ministry of Public Works is only focusing on the, the land transportations. And the other left will be handled by other ministries like communication, and then also for the development infrastructure for the mineral and energy and mineral. So the most important infrastructure can be beneficial to the disadvantaged people, as most Indonesians still have a low income. So one example with the cost for 1.26 billion, a water source was successfully constructed in Kendal. Is one of the area so that people can. The first thing they only can get the water, seek the water, taking from the river, and then they have to leave that is in the very far away, and then after that, from the infrastructure developments coming into the place, and they just find the water available in front of their house. So this is what I'm saying, that the infrastructure development have to touch the needs of the people. Other things is various party needs to support the governments, which is currently emphasizing massive infrastructure development starting from the construction of roads, ports, airports, railway, and others. Because in any case, the development has an impact on the people's economic and everyone. So the point is, by understanding its spatial dynamics, natural resources, and develop integrated infrastructure, then Indonesia will be having an inclusive development. A holistic approach that considers geographic diversity, local resources, and community aspiration will be the key to success in achieving sustainable development, providing benefits for all Indonesian people. In effort to have an equitable development throughout Indonesia, collaboration between the central government, regional governments, and local community is a very important one. And development planning that considers geographic diversity, local resources, and community aspiration can ensure sustainability and equitable benefit for all regions of Indonesia. By implementing the good strategies, Indonesia has the opportunity, of course, to be more equitable development throughout the archipelago. And a holistic approach that takes into account geographic diversity, local resources, and community aspiration will be the key success for that, of course. And ladies and gentlemen, in this moment, we are very lucky and such an honor to have our guest lecturers from Australia, and from China, and from Indonesia, whose his knowledge and experience in the area of infrastructure, and willing to share with us their expertise in the area of infrastructure. Certainly, of course, I would like to say thank you for professors who's coming from Latrobe University as well as from China, from Sichuan University in China, for your contribution, and I believe it will be very beneficial and fruitful for our students. So we look forward to having your time again in the future. Probably if you visit Indonesia, we look forward to having you again, meeting in our university. Thank you, and to my students, have a wonderful lecture today, and have a good day. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Insinyur Sri Astuti Indriati, MS PhD, for the inspiring opening remarks.
At this time, we will proceed with the presentation of mementos to our distinguished speaker. We kindly invite Professor Krishna S. Pribadi, Association Professor Tong Kwan Chan, and Professor Chuan Chen to come forward to the stage.
Next, we invite Director of Universitas Persada Indonesia Y.A.I, Profesor Insinyur Sri Astuti Indriati, MS PhD, to come forward to present the mementos to our esteemed speakers. We invite Professor Krishna S. Pribadi to come forward to receive the certificate. And next, we invite as well Professor Tong Kwan Chan to come forward to receive the certificate. And we invite Professor Chuan Cheng to come forward to receive the certificate. Dan kami menurut mengundang Pak Arman untuk maju ke depan memulai foto bersama. Untuk para peserta diharapkan untuk berdiri melakukan sesi.
Untuk teman-teman harap merempet biar kalau foto semuanya kelihatan. Thank you for your participation in the photo session. We kindly ask the rector and our speaker to return to their seat. We continue with the next part of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite our distinguished speaker, Professor Krishna S. Pribadi, Association Professor Tong Kwan Chan, and Professor Chuan Cheng, to please come up to the stage and take your seat for the upcoming presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to proceed with the next session, where we will have the pleasure of hearing from our overview speaker, Our overview speaker today is Professor Krishna S. Pribadi, a renowned expert in civil engineering with a distinguished career spanning several decades. Professor Krishna previously served as a faculty member at the prestigious Bandung Institute Technology, where he made remarkable contribution to the field of infrastructure development. His expertise in structural engineering, project management, and sustainable development has made him a key figure in shaping modern civil engineering in Indonesia. Currently, Professor Krishna continues his exceptional academic journey at Universitas Persada Indonesia (Y.A.I), where he remains dedicated to educating and inspiring the next generation of engineers with extensive experience in both academic research and practical projects. His influence extends beyond the classroom, impacting numerous high-profile infrastructure projects both nationally and internationally. It is our honor to have him with us today to deliver his presentation on Introduction of Infrastructure Developing in Indonesia. The presentation will be concise, lasting only 30 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Professor Krishna S. Pribadi.
Yeah, thank you. Your Excellency, Ibu Rektor, Ibu Profesor Astuti Indriati, and our guest, honorary guest, Professor Chuan Chen from Sichuan University and Professor Tung Kuan Chen from Latrobe University, and all our guest participants of the seminar. Good afternoon, very good afternoon for all of you. I would like to just give a short introduction to infrastructure development in Indonesia. I hope you can see clearly in the presentation. I don't know if we can reduce a little bit the light near the screen. Yeah, but near the screen. Yeah. Okay, let's start with the first slide. Next. Okay, yeah. I would like first to briefly give an overview of Indonesia, in particular for our both guest lecturers, because they come from outside, but I'm sure that Professor Pike already understand well the situation of Indonesia. Our country is an archipelago with more than 17,000 islands, extending from the west to the east of Indonesia with almost 3,000 kilometers distance. And we are the most populous, the fourth most populous country in the world with 280, more than 282 million populations. Yeah. Now the fourth after China, of course, and India and USA. Yeah. Sebentar. Yeah, maybe I think I would like to repeat what has been presented or discussed by Professor Indriati just now in her introductions, yeah, we can see that in Indonesia, most of the people are, ya, saya nggak bisa lihat. I cannot see. Sorry, I would like just to move here. Easier for me to read. Yeah, we can see here the distribution of GDP in Indonesia, which are not of course not uniform, yeah, and mostly concentrated in the Java Island, and within the second and third tier cities, we can see the red is less than 5%, the yellow 5 to 7%, and more than 7% the green, the GDP within 2016 and 2030. Yeah. And also Indonesia consisted of 38 provinces, yeah, 38 provinces here, and around 500 local authorities. But in terms of GDP, Indonesia has shown resilience, averaging around 5 to 6% annual growth, despite global economic fluctuations. But in terms of the total nominal GDP, Indonesia is one of the largest economy in Southeast Asia with almost 1 trillion GDP. Yeah, next. Yeah. Indonesia also, despite all the pressures and the fluctuations of the global economy, we have, for example, the increasing gross national income per capita, like from the 1991 to 2021, we can see our income per capita increasing from $1,000 to around $4,000 within upper middle income level. And we can see also the middle class has been growing to 135 million people within the last 20 years. And on the other side, we have also the foreign direct investment in various sectors, including infrastructure, manufacturing, and technology. Maybe not very high compared to other countries in the regions, but however, it helped boosting our economy. And although the total is not highly increasing, but we have a stable increase of the foreign direct investment. The total is here, the total investment, but our foreign direct investment is stabilizing at some point, yeah, about 30,000 million US dollar, yeah, 30 billion US dollar. Next. So related with this economic development, of course, we have the big need of the infrastructure development, which is considered to be a cornerstone of our economic growth. It boosts our productivity, it enhances our connectivity, and promotes economic inclusivity. Also, hopefully, it can attract investment despite all the challenges we have. Yeah? And of course, what we need is actually to have more sustainable growth supported by our infrastructure project. Next. Yeah, for example, we have public infrastructure investment in the past 10 years, which is more or less increasing, although we have some lag in some years. This is because of COVID, yeah, in 2020, but after that it's steadily increasing. And this is a comparison of infrastructure investment in Asia by country, and Indonesia somewhere in the middle, yeah, in terms of percentage to GDP. Not very high, but also not low. So hopefully in the future it will increase in terms of the percentage of GDP. Maybe comparing to China, almost 7% of the GDP. Indonesia is only around 3% of GDP, which need, of course, increase to have a more stable growth in the infrastructure provisions. Next. Yeah, this is just an example. In the past 5 years, for example, the achievement in the construction or in the development of the toll roads or jalan bebas hambatan, freeways in Indonesia. We have 2,700 kilometers all over the country. Maybe compared to China, not much, only within one province, yeah. But for Indonesia, 2,700 kilometers is something. Compared to, say, 10 years ago, we have only less than 200 kilometers in 10 years ago. So within 10 years, we have 10 times more length of the freeway all over the country. Mostly in Java, where we have our concentration of populations, but also we are developing the highway there in Sumatra, Trans-Sumatra Highway and Trans-Sulawesi Highway. Next. This is a map of the provisions or developments of dams all over the country in different parts of Indonesia. More than 53 dams all of the country, yeah, in 2024. Next. This is also a plan for investment in the energy sector to develop, of course, the promotions of the investments, yeah, in different parts of the country. Many the total investment need is up to 10 trillion rupiah in 2020. Now it's much higher than that. Next. We have also actually a target for 2045, the Indonesia must, yeah, 5 visions and 8 agenda, and infrastructure is part of the agenda to support all the target achievement in 2045. Next. Related to infrastructure in 2045, this is our long-term development plan to 2045 to develop, to build connectivity infrastructure, multimodal transport integrations. Our goal is to have complete multimodal transport infrastructure, including road network, airports, seaport, and electricity transport. Yeah. This aims to improve mobility and accessibility of the community to industrial locations and trade centers, thereby facilitating a smoother flow of goods and services. And also one of the other target is to have the energy infrastructure most related to new and renewable energy. This is to support the sustainable development goals. Yeah, because we have energy transition plan from the fuel, fossil fuel to uh, more sustainable energy sources, yeah, including solar energy, wind power, hydroelectric power, and natural gas. Next, also the more target on the ICT, digital and telecommunication infrastructure, the integration of digital technology into public infrastructure, and also economic supporting investment. Yeah, next. Yeah. These are the national strategic project that currently Indonesia have, what we call the PSN, the Project Strategi Nasional, in different part of Indonesia. This maybe not very clear, but hopefully you can see later in the file, if the file is shared to you. The value of the strategic project, Indonesian National Strategic Project investment in different part of the country and in different sector. Next, we have some listing of, for example, by December 2024, 10 projects, 10 strategic projects. Yeah. Many of them related to infrastructure, for example, toll roads, industrial park, new energy in the Morowali area, development of waterfront coastal area, and also industrial park, some industrial park. And this is to be completed this year, by this year. Next, we have also this is a very big actually investment for Indonesia, the new capital, Ibu Kota Nusantara, with the target toward 2045 Indonesia Emas. Yeah. Which plan to be developed in 3 stages, 2022. Okay. And to 2024, 2025 to 2035, and toward 2045. We just heard from our new president that he committed to complete the main constructions in 5 years until the end of his term in 2028. Yeah. Next. Yeah. This is, for example, the plan for transportation connectivity. Bisa balik lagi sebentar. Yeah. Transportation connectivity for the toll roads. Yeah. And then next, yeah. Also for the raw water infrastructure plan for the Y.A.I development. This is the list of the needs, yeah, to be implemented in different part of the Y.A.I. Next. And they have actually planned for PPP schemes in the Y.A.I. They call it the unsolicited PPP scheme stages. Yeah. Beside the solicited, of course. Maybe Professor Challanges later will talk more about PPP. Next. I would like to talk also about something different. This is an interesting project in collaboration with China, yeah. Part of the One Belt, One Road or OBOR, One Belt, One Road project, which is an ambitious plans actually uh, uh, to revitalize the Silk Economic Road. Yeah. And in Indonesia, we have, for example, next, yeah, uh, this is the initiation of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2019 between President Jokowi and Xi Jinping, right? And we have go back, balik lagi sebentar. Yeah, we have agreement for 23 cooperation agreement for a number of projects. Yeah. Next, yeah, for example, 23 projects in total, and 5 of the 23 projects, $14.2 billion dollar. That's include the Y.A.I hydroelectric power plant, water treatment investment, Pabatwa hydroelectric power plant, and special economic zones, and integrated fishing industry in Seram. Next, these are the locations of the what we call it Belt and Road Initiative project in Indonesia in different part of the country. Sumatra, it's near Medan, Tanjung Kuala, yeah, Kuala Tanjung, and in Kalimantan and east of Nusa Tenggara and also in Sulawesi. Next, in North Sumatra we have port hub of Kuala Tanjung International Industrial Estate and Saimangkai Industrial Park and gas power plant, and also the Kuala Namu International Airport. Next, in North Kalimantan we have the International Port Industrial Area in Tanah Kuning, Economic Zone, Strategic Industry in Tanah Kuning, and also industrial estate infrastructure and public facilities, including port, yeah, and integrated grid for power plant and Kayan Hydro Energy power plant. Next, in North Sulawesi, it's basically tourism area, Likupang tourism area, and also the industrial area in Bitung. Next, in Bali, Turtle Island Techno Park project. Next, outside priority corridors, we have also 8 projects mostly on energy, like coal-fired power plant and coal-fired power plant. Also some project related to integrated industrial area. Next. Yeah. And in particular, this project, the Jakarta-Bandung High Speed Railway and Kayan River and Kuala Tanjung are the largest infrastructure investment in Indonesia for the Belt and Road Initiative. Yeah. This is already operational now in Indonesia, the Jakarta-Bandung High Speed Railway. Next. Yeah, it's high speed, it's 140 kilometers, now already operational. Maybe when you visit Bandung, after you will use this train. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Okay, I think for 30 minutes that's all. Just an introductions of the infrastructure development in Indonesia and the needs of the future. I have not, because not enough time to discuss about the challenges. Actually, we have many challenges. I think it's already elaborated by Professor Indri and your uh, introduction speech. Yeah, the disparity and also the those related to the regulatory system and legal system in Indonesia, which is not very clear, yeah, related to the infrastructure development. So we have large homework on this. Yeah. Maybe Professor Challanges will talk also about the hurdle that we have related to the, in particular, for the PPP project in Indonesia. Yeah. I think I would like to close my presentations here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to me to give this very short lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Krishna, for your insightful presentation and for providing us with a comprehensive introduction to infrastructure development in Indonesia.
Now, moving on to our next speaker, Associate Professor Thong Quang Chan from Latrobe University, Australia. He is an authority on sustainable construction technology and has extensive experience, both research and practical application in this field. With an extensive background in both academic research and practical implementation, his work focused on integrating innovative construction methods that promote sustainable across various, particularly in Australia, Southeast Asia. His exercise span green building technology, life cycle analytics, and sustainable project management, making him a key figure in a driving global conversation on how to build resilient and eco-friendly infrastructure. His presentation today is titled Construction Technology for Sustainable Infrastructure, and we look forward to learning more from this global perspective on sustainable practice. The session will consist of a 40-minute presentation followed by a 10-minute Q&A.
Good afternoon. Ibu Rector, Ibu Dekan, Prof. Krishna, thank you very much for inviting us here to talk about sustainable construction. Now, I have 40 minutes. I don't need this, it's all right. I can actually speak for 3 hours. So this is the danger of inviting academics to come to university. We forget about time, so that's why I have my timer over here. So let's make sure that I stick to 40 minutes. Next slide. Slides. Okay, while waiting for the slides to load. Okay, no problem. Would Victor want to go first? Why don't you go first? I'll load up the file. Okay. Sorry, apologies. Let Victor go first. I will load my file.
All right.
But can I load my slides? No?
Can you load Victor's slides? Let Victor go first.
My name is Chuan Chen. I'm from China. Before I came back to China, I taught in several places, including Melbourne University in Australia, where I worked with T.K. Chan as colleagues. 12 years ago, I joined the Sichuan University as a faculty member in the business school, specialized on construction management. To me, I think that this is a great chance for everyone to come together. I'm so excited to see so many young faces. Actually, this is my first time to speak to students in such a context because Yeah, so many people from Indonesia. Actually, this is my first time to come to Indonesia. To me, I think young people have such a great chance here in this great country. There are so many possibilities because based on statistics, in such a group, maybe in 20 or 30 years, we have so many millionaires, billionaires, famous politicians, famous professors. But the key to be successful in the future, I think, in this country, based on my experience in China, I think is to predict the future. If you can see through time, if you can see what will happen in the future, I think you will have a great chance to make a name for yourself and have a very successful career and life. I think today's arrangement is wonderful because you have Krishna, who introduced the current status in Indonesia, and me from China to introduce the PPP project in China. And you also have T.K. Chan from Australia to introduce something from a more developed country. So I think Indonesia, China, and Australia actually makes a kind of stage of development. So this helps you to predict the future. You know the current status. You may know the ultimate future of Indonesia. That becomes another Australia. But in 10 years, maybe you will become another China. So you will get information from us from such a way, okay? So this is very important. I think by attending a seminar, you cannot get everything. But if you can change your mindset, that's the best you can get. All right, so put yourself in such a context and listen to us as to think. That will be your excellent takeaway. My topic for today is 40 years of public-private partnership in China, reflections and lessons learned. When I was a student, when I was a master student, I studied at the NUS in Singapore. I got a scholarship from the Singapore government to support my study. When I started my research about BOT or PPP, actually either PPP or BOT are kind of broader sense concept to cover a lot of modalities to develop infrastructure. Next, please. Next, please again. So what's infrastructure? This is very amazing term to me. When I first read about infrastructure, I fell in love with it. Actually, so far, it has been part of my life. To me, infrastructure is such important. They are basic physical assets to support social and economic activities as a very basic assets. Without a strong infrastructure, there's no way to have a sustainable economic growth. If you are so interested in such a term as me, I would like to recommend a very important, although very old report to you. That's a World Development Report published by World Bank in 1994. It can still be downloaded from the internet. So I strongly recommend it to you because it enables you to know the very complex linkage between economic growth and infrastructure. So the first important takeaway from me to you is that understand infrastructure, understand its role in economic growth. Next one, please. Next. But infrastructure is a highly fragmented and integrated concept. It covers so many things, In China, our concept about infrastructure is such that maybe 20 or 30 subsectors that could be put under the umbrella: energy, transportation, water, agricultural facilities, forestry facilities, so on and so forth. Next is the second part of the stimulus. So the concept is that it's highly, highly broad. Okay, that's good. That's handy, thank you. So the key thing is, what's the relationship between infrastructure and the economy? But I cannot turn, actually. Can I? Can you? Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Can I turn pages? Still cannot. But this is the pointer, right? I'm going to turn pages, but, huh? Okay, next please. Okay. So here's the relationship. In development economies, that's a branch of economics, mainly focusing on how economic growth could be achieved. Those economists give us such a relationship. Between infrastructure and economic growth, there's kind of interconnection. So if you have infrastructure in place, then you have a push to your economic growth. However, to have infrastructure to be built, you need to have the money to fund it. But where does the money come from? From your economic growth. So just like the chicken and the egg, who is the first, who is the second? That's a little bit complicated. But basically, we believe infrastructure has a primary push to economic growth. So you need to have infrastructure in place, and then you enjoy growth. Based on statistics by Boston Consulting Group, for every dollar increase in infrastructure capacity, $3 per annum in extra economic activities could be achieved. So you put in $10, you get out $3 per year. But that's a good business because that's $3 per year. If the infrastructure has a lifespan for about 20 years, you got $60 back, right? That's pretty lucrative. But not all infrastructure has the same design life. You know, for example, in regarding urban roads, the pavement can last for about 10 years. So for every 10 years, you need to renew it. But still, that's good business. You still get like $30 back from your $10 investment, right? But pay attention to this, because this kind of calculation is an average one, okay? For a country at a different stage of development, the exact relationship could be different. Also, as I said, infrastructure is pretty much fragmented. So for different infrastructure, this kind of relationship may vary. So what are those infrastructure projects where if you invest $10, you may get more than $3 back? What are they? Go back to Krishna's presentation. In your plan, in the MEAS, the plan, you know, it indicates some strategic projects for your country. Okay, so those are the key things. For example, connectivity infrastructure. That means transportation or power grids. Those infrastructure connect your country, an island country, into one entity. That's highly important. I think, personally, the importance of infrastructure to Indonesia is much more than that in China. So put your emphasis on transportation. That's a very good business with a much higher ratio, about 3/10. Also, energy. Energy is highly important. I talked to a Chinese contractor this morning. He told me in Indonesia, the average power capacity in this country is just about 1/3 or 1/4 that of China. Think about it. You don't have enough power, even comparison with China. If you compare with Australia, maybe even worse. What do we do? I also talked to some people that told me the renewable energy here in this country is even at its initial stage. Solar power, pretty weak. Your installed capacity of solar power is almost none. It's almost none. So if some of them here, young people here, if you focus on solar power, if you get some technology from China, if you set up a small factory manufacturing those solar facilities, believe me, you can make a fortune. You will have your time very soon. just interruption. I think everyone, you should take a chance to visit China and Australia following this seminar. See by your eyes, I think that's highly important because, just hearing is not enough. Another information from Boston Consulting is this this chart. When I first saw it, it was so appealing to me, so I can't help introducing it to you. Here is a chart that shows by 2030, the world needs so much of infrastructure in place, but in 2013, 10 years ago, we have the existing capacity of infrastructure at this point. By time, some of them will lose their function, so the existing capacity will go down. We need a new infrastructure to be installed by time. But the government can cover this part. The private sector can cover this part. Still, there's a bigger gap here. We don't have financing for it. So the infrastructure gap is there, and we don't have enough finance for it. How can we do? Let's go back to the relationship between infrastructure and economic growth. Infrastructure is important to push economic growth, but even with high economic growth, you can get enough finance to support infrastructure. So it's highly challenging. You don't have money to build infrastructure, but what can you do? So you must turn to finance. What's finance? Use the future money now to do something, and then you can make more money, so you can pay it back. That's finance. So in Indonesia, we don't have enough money. What we can do? We turn to finance. We find some innovative finance technology. We try to use the money from the future, from overseas. Use that money to build our infrastructure. Then we get economic growth. Then the fiscal income will increase. Then we have more money. Some of them will go to repay the money we borrow from somewhere, but the extra ones will be used in other ways. In such a way, the economic growth is achieved. That's a simple thing. So the second information is that to build infrastructure, we need finance. So everyone here, you think I'm from civil engineering, finance, that's another part of the world. You are wrong. You are totally wrong. You must know something about finance. That's highly important. I have been a student in construction management from a bachelor's degree, and my master PhD are all in construction management, in civil engineering. But when I was teaching at Melbourne University, I got a scholarship from the university to do a master of applied finance. I spent 1 year to get it, while I still burden a lot of workload. That actually paid off. So once I went back to China 12 years ago, I worked as a professor at a university. Meanwhile, I established my own business. I do a lot of consulting. My team and I have finished more than 300 PPP projects with a total investment of about 100 billion US dollars. Think about it. That's amazing, So why I can do that? Because I did something about finance. I know finance, I know construction. Some people know finance, they don't know construction. Vice versa. If you know both, you are the one. Next, please. In construction management, we don't have our own theory. If there's one theory, I think that's Bond curve. Rank Bond is a professor in Reading University in the UK. I think he has retired. I don't know whether he has passed away. Very old professor. See, he developed such a theory indicating some principle about construction and economic growth. It's a very simple relationship, actually. The X is GNP per capita. Sorry, this one. The Y is the share of construction spending in GNP. So LDC stands for least developed country. NIC stands for newly industrialized countries. And then we have AIC, advanced industrialized countries. So what the theory says is that when a country starts as a highly less developed country with its economic goals, the construction, the ratio of construction spending on GNP will increase very fast. But when the country reaches the status of NIG, construction over GNP reaches the highest point, and then it will go down. So put us again in the same context I told you. Assume Indonesia is somewhere here. China is somewhere here. Australia maybe somewhere here. So what will happen in the future? Indonesia has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So we will quickly climb up to the position of China. At this point, this country will have large amount of construction. So you guys here are so lucky. When I entered university 30 years ago, my department head held a very important meeting with all the students, all the new students. He told me, you guys are lucky. So I would like to repeat the same thing to you. You guys are lucky because you will feel so many opportunities in this great country. No matter what you want to do, you will find an excellent position for you. Either you want to be a lawyer, a construction manager, or financier, you can do it well because you are lucky to have the future. That's to climbing this path. People from Australia, like a TK, he's pretty unlucky. He can only go down, right? So students in Australia, they would like to maybe just look for a job, enjoy life. That's it. You guys can experience the increase. That will be fascinating. Why it's fascinating? Because that's my experience. When I was born in China, China was very poor. Somewhere here, And then I see the whole path until we reach this point. China is now facing some economic challenge. We don't know what will happen next. But so far, I would say that miracle. So you will see it in this country. So for many years to come in this country, construction will enjoy a growth rate much higher than GDP or GNP. So that means if you choose a walk of life in construction industry, you will enjoy more chances than people choose the other sector of the economy. So that's why you are lucky, comparatively. Next, please. Now, let's get back to Boston's curve, Boston's theory. So, yeah, based on its calculation, there's a bigger gap. But how can we fill that gap? So 5 strategies were proposed. First is to prioritize and then streamline your portfolio of projects. That's a key thing, You can see from what Krishna introduced to you, there's a huge amount of projects to be done in this country. But which of them should go first? That's highly important. As I suggest, focus on connectivity projects and power projects. That should be prioritized. And then let other things, for example, environmental protection, that will go later. Then you say, come on, Victor, how could that happen? We will have growth. Meanwhile, we need to protect our environment. That is equally important. No, that may not be wrong. You cannot do things together. If you choose to achieve everything, you achieve nothing. So, the environment may suffer at the beginning. We may suffer from like a haze, like a dirty water. But be patient, okay? Let's use our limited money to build roads, power plants, make people richer, and then we turn to environmental protection. So you don't have to go onto the streets, say, government, pay attention to environmental protection, okay? Give up some projects like dams. That's not smart, believe me. So be patient in some way. You must follow the principle of infrastructure development. That's highly important. So be smart, don't be silly. And then, I cannot see the second one. It's not very clear. Anyway, you need to speed up project plan and execution. You need to simplify the procedure so that you can reduce transaction cost in construction. That's also very important. That's also very important. Because when I talk to people in Indonesia, they told me the interest rate here are pretty high. Okay, the risk-free rate is about 7%. So that means your country is suffering from like inflation. In this case, you must finish your construction as soon as possible. Let's take some example from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, Macau, and mainland China, people built a giant bridge linking the three parts of China. That project was proposed many years ago, but it met with so many arguments. So the project was seriously delayed. Because of the delay, the actual cost of the project doubled. So if you want to save money in construction, you need to get it done as soon as possible because inflation, because the country suffer from some other things, like the price of cement, the price of some other materials in construction, like increase very fast. So do it quickly as possible. If you can finish the project this year, in comparison with you do it 10 years later, you save a huge amount of money. So speed up construction, speed up decision making, that's highly important. 3. No, I should switch second and third. No, okay, go back to that chart, this one, make it clearer. Okay. Cultivate a supporting predictable and transparent environment. So to increase your business environment, that's highly important. I talked to some elite people from this country. They say this country needs more money from overseas. We use money from Japan, we need to use money from China, we need money from Australia. But to do that, you need to have a good business environment so that foreign direct investment can take place. That's highly important. Increase the availability of and innovation in finance. Innovation. Again, we get back to finance. So I hope you guys here can learn finance. We have 4 faculties in this university. We have business and economy. So students from engineering, go to your professors in finance. Take their courses, learn from them. That's highly important. Next, please. Next, I think this is backward. Okay. Now I want to share some experience about infrastructure finance in China. In China, I think we have explored so many different innovative infrastructure finance methods. Believe me, we have tried many things, much more than Australia, the United States, or UK. Some of them failed, some of them succeed. So lessons from China are highly valuable because we have paid a high price to find which are good, which are bad. You don't have to pay the same price. So learn from China, just like Vietnam. Vietnam copy this kind of regulation from China. They just use it. Of course, they will say which can work, then they use it. I think Indonesia can learn from many other countries, including China. So you can pay less price to get it. So, but anyway, despite so many finance methods, at a different stage of our development, there was always a single one which is which prevail at that stage. For example, from middle 1990s to 2014, we had built transfer as the most important project delivery system. And then from 2014 till 2020, we got a PPP. Following that, we got ABO. Many of you may have not heard about ABO. It's China-made, made in China. You cannot say it in any journals or books. But what's it? Believe me, I think ABO can be applied in Australia or in Indonesia. But that takes a long time to introduce it. I don't have time. but if you're interested, you can see. Next, please. Today, I would like just to introduce PPP in China. Actually, for the past 2 days, I talked with a lot of colleagues here about PPP. I found actually there's a high similarity between the two countries with regard to PPP. So I don't have to talk too much about it, about the definition or some basics. I mean, they're the same. Everybody knows, I think. Next one, please. But I would like to show you, I think, the nature of PPP. I think PPP is has a very strong logic where the public and the private, which are very different parties, they have a very complementary resources and capability. The PPP as a project delivery system, they put the two parties together and they maximize their complements and they minimize their conflicts so that a good performance could be achieved. That's the beauty of a PPP, okay? So it's important, no matter how you arrange the contracts, you must maximize their complements and minimize their conflicts. That's a key. Believe me, I have successfully finished more than 300 projects. I think this kind of logic is always at the bottom of my heart. That's highly, highly important. This may be difficult to understand, but just bear in mind. I think one day it will help you to command this kind of delivery system. Next, please. Again, China is so similar as Indonesia, where we have most of the private sector developer to be state-owned enterprise, not a truly private company. That's a big issue because a very dangerous issue could happen. That's kind of called risk backflow. That's the third point I want you to know by my presentation. So one critical success factor for PPP projects is that you need a split risk between public sector and private sector. If you split the risks in a manner, you can achieve good performance. But traditionally, the private sector in many countries are true private enterprises. So the split system that could be applied in many other countries like Australia are not applicable here in Indonesia or China. Because if one risk factor theoretically should be borne by the private sector, but the private sector, this company is a state-owned enterprise, it belongs to the government. So the risk could be further kicked back to the government. So this kind of split is wrong, you know. Does that make sense? The government asks the private enterprise, actually that's a state-owned enterprise, to bear a risk. But because that company actually is a part of the government or is owned by the government, the risk ultimately kicked back to the government. So this kind of risk split is wrong. That's a theoretical issue about this situation where the private sector is not a truly private one. It's a state enterprise. This is a big issue that can explain many failures in PPP in Indonesia or China. That's a fourth point I want you to take back home. Let's turn to the last two slides of this presentation. Let's continue turning to the very end. Thank you. Next one. Last one, actually. So I will skip a lot of the slides because they are very basic. Because the last two slides will show the other important points I want you to know. Sorry, can you move to the last two slides? Last one. Last one. Okay. The one backward. No, backward again. Backward again. That's it. So here are some I think, success experience from China. The first one is comprehensively assimilated domestic and international expertise. Because of China, you know, we learn by doing. We also borrow from other countries, many from the UK and South Korea. Second, capacity building. The country organized a lot of seminars, a lot of training programs to train local government officials about PPP. Meanwhile, they train the private sector. Third, engage the top experts and consulting firms. There are so many excellent experts and consultants who have been deeply involved in PPP projects. That's very important. Fourth, establish the rigorous and transparent project operational procedures. Maybe different from Indonesia. In China, there's a very specific the pathway to do a PhD, to do a PPP. Every step is strictly requested, so you cannot miss any step of it. So by this clear-cut procedure, every project cannot be out of control. The first one, facilitate the experience exchange through demonstration projects. Interestingly, in China, we have a demonstration program. So each year, the government will select several projects as a demonstration, showing it can be copied anywhere. So other projects can learn from them. This kind of demo projects actually play such an important role in China. Last page. Next one. Okay, problem. In China, we don't have a PPP law. We don't have any law specifically about PPP in China. So that's a problem. We rely on policies to carry out a PPP project. Bankability. Many projects face difficulty in getting funding or specifically debts from banks, because in China, banks are very strong power. They are easily laying down and making money. They don't want innovation. They don't want innovation. That may be the same problem here. So it's difficult to ask them to follow PPP. They are not very active in borrowing to PPP. That's a key issue. Insufficient revenue from end users. If you look at many projects, they have a wonderful feasibility study showing that, for example, for toll roads, the traffic flow will be excellent, but that's not the case, actually. So don't believe in feasibility study. Many projects will suffer from inadequate revenue. So that's a truth. That's a fact. Domestic dominance of SOE, the same problem here in this country. I think now China has changed their system. For many projects, the governments will turn to truly private company as a potential sponsor for the projects. This is a very strict, a very sharp change. So maybe in this country, you should do the same. Don't rely on SOE. Turn to the true private enterprises. They can do much better in PPP. Basically, that's what I want to share with you guys. Thanks a lot. Is there a Q&A?
The Q&A we combine in the last. Thank you very much, Professor Chuan Cheng, for your detailed and thought-provoking presentation on public-private partnership in infrastructure development. We are grateful for the insight you provide on how PPPs can drive sustainable development in developing countries. Before I move to the next speaker, I will read the CV of Professor Chuan Cheng. Professor Chuan Cheng is from Sichuan University, China. Professor Cheng is a leading expert in public-private partnership, PPP, in infrastructure development, especially in developing countries. His extensive experience in managing large-scale infrastructure projects making him a valuable source of knowledge for us today. His presentation focuses on public-private partnership in infrastructure development countries. Okay, please join me again for the next speaker, welcoming Prof. Tong Kwan Chang.
Okay, second attempt. Good afternoon. PowerPoint, please. PowerPoint? Okay, I have 40 minutes, and I have made sure that there is a photograph, a picture to share on every slide, except one. My apologies. Next. So what I'm going to talk about is a case study. Instead of talking about sustainable construction, I'm going to give you an example of how a sustainable building is built in Australia. So as some of you introduced me earlier, I was 16 years at the University of Melbourne, and my office was up here. Pak Krishna has visited me, and he thinks this is an amazing building. So let me tell you how amazing this building is from a sustainable perspective. So there were sustainability issues in all aspects of the construction. Yes, it's very warm in here. In the demolition, in the construction, in the design, and I will be talking about various sustainable features throughout the entire building. My former student Mike here will correct me if I'm wrong because he studied at this building. So we have different materials and different systems within this building. What I'm going to spend a lot of time on is cross-laminated timber. Cross-laminated timber is a relatively new product that is available in Australia, and it's a difficult material to use. Next slide. So we will talk about opportunities for recycling. So being sustainable, well, the most sustainable thing would be to use the old building and not build a new building, correct? But we needed a new building, so we got this. So there were opportunities to recycle the old materials. I will talk about the construction aspects. How many of you are civil engineers? Technique Civil. How many of you do construction? Only one? Okay, so there will be a lot of connection between civil and construction. I do not talk about architecture because I'm not an architect. Any questions about architecture, speak to Mike. So we will have a detailed discussion on all those sustainable features between civil design and construction. So next slide. A little bit of introduction. There was a design competition. You guys know about design competitions. Instead of appointing an architect, they have a design competition. Several architects compete, and the best design is chosen. So 2010, a design competition was held. 2012, we knocked down the old building. I got kicked out, and we moved somewhere else. 2014, we moved back in. The design or the planned construction period was 24 months, and we finished it early. Or rather, the contractor finished it early. I didn't do anything. It was advertised as a 6-star Green Star design building, so it's the first educational building that achieved the maximum number of stars available. The building cost 110 million Australian dollars, and that is approximately 1 trillion rupiah? 1.1 trillion rupiah for a very small building. Next. So during the demolition, all the steel reinforcing bars were reused. We would extract them and send them for reuse. The concrete was also used as crusher run. Next. Let me just show you those Technique Civil. This was the basement retention systems. Board piles went in about 6 to 12 meters, depending on which part of the building. Now, the sustainable feature was this area over here. The plan was to collect rainwater from the roof and from the surrounding areas and store that in a basement water tank of 750,000 liters. So if you come to the building, as Pak Krishna has done, you flush, you think somebody hasn't flushed because the water is not clear. Okay? Because the water is collected from rainwater, and occasionally the water is not that clear. So that's a rainwater tank. Next slide. Yes, good. Now, In terms of construction, let me tell you a few things over here. It's a reinforced concrete system. All the beams, it's not terribly clear from the slide. All the beams run up, down, okay? And all the beams are post-tension concrete beams. All the slabs are composite slabs. So what you see in blue is a bond deck system running from left to right. So that's just reinforced concrete. Some of the bond deck is blue, some of the bond deck is black. Why is it blue? Have you guys seen bond deck? Why is the bond deck blue? Why is the bond deck blue? No, it's not anodized. Any suggestions? Why is it painted either blue or black? Same material. If you don't paint it, the sun will shine and the light will glare into the workers' eyes. So it's more important that the workers don't wear sunglasses. So it's all painted black or blue. Okay? Now, what do you notice over here? We mix different methods of construction. So this is not a sustainable feature. This is a construction feature. Every vertical element is precast. So precast wall, precast column, okay? And every horizontal element is cast in situ. Why? Construction students, why? Why are all the vertical elements precast and all the horizontal elements cast in situ? Come on, think. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone tired, sleepy, warm. Okay, let me give you the answer. Can you imagine if you are making the formwork for the column? What do you call formwork? Bekisting. Okay, how do you make the bekisting? You got to form two sides. You got to put in the reinforcements. You got to form the other two sides. You got to pour concrete. Then you take out all four sides, correct? That will take a lot of time in terms of crane. So it is much quicker to precast all the vertical elements. The columns are double height precast. All right? So that's generally the system. Next. So this is a closer view of how the building was built. So lift core or stairwells. So these are the 3 lift cores. That's a stairwell, all precast. The slabs were cast in situ. There was only 1 tower crane. Now, another reason for having all the vertical elements precast is because of the concrete strength. You know that concrete takes time to gain strength. So if your columns are cast in situ, you have to wait for it to gain strength before you can put another level on top. But if you precast, it comes full strength. But it's fine to cast the slabs in situ because the slabs do not carry another floor. It's only the columns that carry another floor. All right? Next. The building envelope. So all those walls are also precast. Precast, very high quality precast, and only one factory in the whole of Australia can produce high quality precast walls. And it came all the way from South Australia, Bianco Precast. Is that a green decision, a green or sustainable decision? That it has to come from 1,000 kilometers? Not so much. Next. Okay, the roof beams, there was a big atrium inside the building. So the roof beams were made out of LVL beams, laminated veneer lumbers. The reason for using this is because timber is renewable. It could span, or this spans 17 meters. So instead of using steel or concrete, they chose, or the architects chose, a renewable material for the roof. Next. There were some coffers, again, all made out of timber because it's a renewable material. Next. Next. And this is how the roof beams were installed. So from this side all the way to that side, that was 17 meters. And obviously, those of you who can still remember your bending moment diagram, middle section, mid-span should be thicker, and it's a lot thinner towards the ends. Next. This is the view from below, showing the roof beams. Next. I lied. Timber is not strong enough. So within the building, over a 17-meter span, there was a room that was hanging off the roof. So we had, or rather the architects and engineers had to hide a steel truss inside the timber beam. So this is the steel truss that was hidden inside two of the beams to carry hanging studios. Next. And of course, it needs to be fireproofed. Next. And covered up in timber so that you don't know that we hit a steel beam on the inside. So this beam is actually steel. You can see that it's supporting a steel structure that will be another room suspended off the roof. Next. So that's the timber beams going in, view from below. Next. Double glaze, so 2 layers of glass with frits to prevent sunlight from getting in, or too much sunlight from getting in. Next. So that's the fritted glass roof. Those opaque strips will prevent too much sunlight from getting in. Next. As you can see, the building footprint is very large. They had only one tower crane, and that tower crane erected for 6 of those roof panels. Next. Apologies to my good friend over here. Glass was made in China. How many of you, sorry, go back to the glass. What do you think happened here? Nickel sulfide inclusion. How many of you do material science? Nickel sulfide inclusion. So there is an impurity within the glass, and if that particular impurity appears, the crack initiation will be the shape of a butterfly. Okay? So if you look over here, this and that's where the crack started, in the shape of a butterfly. And that tells us conclusively that that was a nickel sulfide inclusion that caused this entire panel to crack and shatter. It was guaranteed by the supplier in China. How to replace? How do you replace this? Because we've already removed the tower crane. Okay? How do you replace? It's a very big building. One piece of glass breaks. How are you going to take it down? That's a story for another day. Next. In Australia, the sun only shines from from the north, right? We are in the south. So the sun usually comes in from the north. During summer, the sun is very strong. So instead of metal screens, the architects chose zinc screens. Why zinc? Why zinc? In terms of material selection, what was the topic of my presentation? Sustainable construction. Zinc has a lower embodied energy compared to other materials. So if you were to use steel, if you were to use aluminum, they will have higher embodied energy. Zinc is slightly lower. So the architects chose zinc for the screens. Next. So the entire, Mike, what was it? North, east, and west side of the building were all covered with zinc screens, right? Next. So that's the zinc screen during the installation process. Next. Now, this is when we listen to the architects. Are there any architects here other than my student Mike? Good, then we... Sorry. The architects decided that every single screen is different. Civil engineers and construction managers. What do you do? Like that, right? If every piece is different, yeah. We always try to question, will the architect notice if we swap them around? We don't know. Next. So that's the view from the inside. I think this was, no, this is not from my office. This is from the dean's office. Next. So these are the construction aspects of the rainwater tank. Like I told you previously, right? They tried to precast every single piece of the vertical elements. And the intermediate piece here was filled with concrete. Next. So that's the rainwater tank. After it has been precasted, it has been connected between the two precast panels. So that section will then be precasted later, will be poured with fresh concrete later on. Next. Now, the architects decided, or rather the client also decided that we wanted to try to use cross-laminated timber to improve its sustainable credentials. So cross-laminated timber is what we call giant plywood. It is like plywood, or what do you call plywood? Papan lapis? Kayu lapis? Kayu lapis. Kayu lapis is usually 16 mm, 19 mm. This is 150, 200, 250 mm thick. So giant plywood. This is considered renewable or greener because it's a renewable product. You can grow it in the forest, cut the forest down, cut the trees down, make this, and regrow your forest. So we wanted to use this for all the floor slabs. Is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? Come on, come on. Sustainable, right? Next. There are some examples of cross-laminated timber being used all over the world. So we thought that it was a good idea. The architects thought it's a brilliant idea. Architects love new materials. Construction people hate new materials. But architects loved it. Next. Because there were not many examples of cross-laminated timber during that time, the engineers decided that we had to carry out several tests. So they took up, I think, 9 or 12 test specimens, 4.8 meters long, 500 wide, 150 mm thick. And those of you who are civil engineers will realize that it needs to be, there was a concrete layer that's put on top, so it has to be acting in a composite action. So there must be a shear connection between the concrete layer at the top and timber at the bottom. So the concerns were that it could deflect, it would bounce a little bit. So if you put a layer of concrete on top, it becomes much stronger, stiffer, reduces noise transmission. You know, ladies wear high heels, you don't want that sound to go downstairs. So there was a testing program to examine the shear connection between concrete and timber. Next. This is side view. So you can see that it had 5 layers, right? In the top layer here, fibers go that way. In the second layer, fibers go that way. Third layer that way. Fourth layer that way. Fifth layer that way. 5 layers, 150 mm thick. Next. 3 different methods were tested. Notch. Down a bit. Okay, okay. Can you see this? Notch. Screws. Hey. Notch. Screws. Naik sikit. And up a bit more. Yes. shear plates. Okay, so 3 different methods were tested. Next. So these were the test specimens. Every method, there were 3 samples. So you can see that over here, it's notched. There was a layer of steel mesh put on top. So this is what we call type A, notched. Next. You can see the cutouts, right? Next. Zoom in onto the cutouts. So the concrete will eventually fill into this space. These are the, I think, 8 mm reinforcing bars at 100 spacing. Next. Type B, having screws going in at 45 degrees. Next. Right? This is a view. Next. Next. And this is where a shear plate was inserted. Next. 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 We poured concrete, so fresh. These are all tests. This is not part of the building. This is just the test carried out by the engineers. 32 megapascal concrete, 700 mm slump, 700 microstrains shrinkage. Next. Concrete was poured. Next. So after 28 days, they started the testing process. Somebody walks on it to see its dynamic response, because with timber, it tends to be a bit bouncy. Next. And it goes into a full load test. Next. So obviously, the concrete layer would split from the timber layer at ultimate load carrying capacity. Next. So these are all the load test rigs. Next. You can see it pushing. So this is type A. It's pushing against cross-laminated timber there. Next. Then the whole piece delaminates. Remember that the CLT was 5 layers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just splits right across. Next. Engineers love graphs like this, but I won't be spending time talking about it. So one of these systems worked much better than the other 2. Next. This is the tender set of drawings. So the floors were supposed to be cross-laminated timber right across, but the beams were concrete. Okay? So the plan, so the brilliant architects and the brilliant engineers thought that the floor should be timber, concrete, beams supporting the floors were concrete. Next. So if you look at this from plan view, beam is here, edge beam over here, this all the way to here is cross-laminated timber. Next. Right? So the cross-laminated timber is 150. There should be about 80 mm thick of concrete. Next. Testing was done. Contract awarded to the builder. So now the construction managers come in. What do the construction managers need to do? Finish on time. Yes. So they think, where do the cross-laminated timber come from? Where do you buy cross-laminated timber? Austria. We are in Australia. Timber comes from Austria. Okay? Not, not very, number one, as Pak Krishna says, not very sustainable. It has to be shipped. Then there is the risk of your ship not coming on time. So as the contractor, builder, you'll be like, very dangerous if it doesn't come on time. The underside of the cross-laminated timber is exposed. So can you imagine looking up and you see the underside of the timber? You will think that the contractor forgot to remove the bekisting. Very tight fabrication tolerances, okay? For the contractor, this is their first time working with cross-laminated timber. Remember the shear connections, the bolts, the screws have to go in at 45. How do you screw a screw at 45 degrees? It's very easy to do 90 degrees, but to 45... So all the shear connections were labor intensive, very difficult to do. The thin metal screed, remember I said it was 80 mm. How do you compact 80 mm of concrete? Very hard. The band beams were post-tension, but the slabs were not post-tension. So it may eventually, over time, creep. The installation time for cross-laminated timber could not be confirmed. So the builder said that we can build it, but we can't guarantee you that it will be completed on time. So there's a very large labor contingency cost. Next. What do? We spent $500,000 on testing. We wasted 6 months of testing. Then we said no to the architect and to the engineers. So it's a sustainable idea, but we decided not to go ahead with it. So we changed that to the bond deck. Remember I showed you the blue bond deck? Why didn't you ask me? Was I lying to you? What am I talking about all this when I showed you the solution? Solution was bond deck. There was no cross-laminated timber used because of all these issues. Okay, next. So cross-laminated timber and concrete composite was completely replaced with bond deck, purely based on supply and install subcontract prices. We could still get some of the green credentials by using concrete that had 30% fly ash and some recycled aggregates. So these are other sustainable features that we could add into the project to maintain its Green Star rating. So it doesn't always have to be new materials or sustainable materials. It was possible to still get green concrete and maintain our Green Star rating. What happens to green concrete? What happens to concrete if you add fly ash? Yes, what happens to the concrete strength? Is it stronger or is it weaker? Lebih kuat, kurang kuat? It is usually stronger, but it takes a longer time to gain strength. Okay? It usually takes a longer time to gain strength. So from a design perspective, fly ash is good. From a construction perspective, fly ash is not very good. So you can see that even though we talk about sustainability, you have to think, why do you want sustainability? From different perspectives, you have different priorities, okay? So for an architect, they will say, yes, we want green concrete. For a builder, we do not really want green concrete. It slows down the construction process. Next. So what were the lessons learned? So I've just given you a case study. What were the lessons learned when you start thinking about sustainable construction? Easy wins or low-hanging fruit will be to recycle and reuse materials. Common sustainable features like rainwater harvesting is easy. Double glazing, I'm not sure if you use a lot of double glazing over here. We were at the Ritz-Carlton yesterday and your glass is still single layer, very thin. Sun shading, like what we've done over here, reduces heat gain, and you could do the same here in Indonesia. Next. But if you are intending to design or to build a completely new building following these sustainable design practices, you got to spend a little bit more time thinking about what works and what doesn't work. We have compared the advantages versus disadvantages of green concrete. Green concrete takes a much longer time to gain strength. Buying your materials from overseas increases supply risk. Remember during COVID, what happened to, there was a ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, ever given, right? So can you imagine if your materials are on that ship and you're building this halfway, your project's going to be delayed. You also need local experience, local equipment, and skills. Next. That's it. Perfect timing. Any questions? Wait, go back one. Any questions? My email is there, my mobile number is there, but don't pinch any of my pictures. They belong to my friend, and they're all copyright. Next. If you are interested, there are videos from YouTube that shows you the entire construction process over 5 episodes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Tong Kwan Chen, for your enlightened and detailed presentation on sustainable infrastructure. We truly appreciated your insight into construction technology and the valuable lesson you have shared with us today.
Okay, we have now received some questions for Professor Tong Kwan Chan and Professor Chong Chen from our participants through the online message system. Let me read the first question. This question for Professor Tong Kwan Chen. The question asks, how can developing countries like Indonesia overcome financial and technical challenges to adapt sustainable construction technologies while keeping large infrastructure projects cost efficient? And
I answer now? Okay, great. No, they're not all mine, right? So answer the question 1.
the question answered one by one.
Don't be too ambitious. Do what you can. Is that short enough? Second one, mine also. Okay, sustainable while balancing the need for short-term. What policies or financial tools will help make this happen? No, it's sustainable. Question 2, is it for me or for Victor?
For this, for
me?
Yes.
Okay, all 3 questions for me. Look, I understand that sustainable construction, if you were to use some of the technologies, it will be more costly. If you cannot afford to use that, don't use it. Think about cheap, simple solutions. Like rainwater harvesting is not that hard. Adding fly ash into concrete is actually good because you are using a waste material and putting it into concrete. So think of options that are cost effective. Think of options that you can very easily implement without additional costs. All right? Sometimes if you orientate your building slightly differently, you save a lot of energy. Think about lessen your dependence on air conditioning. I think in architecture, there are lots of design practices where you can reduce your air conditioning load just by using natural ventilation. Questions, please? How can communication professionals shape public opinion and behavior to support sustainable construction? The short-term economic gain may be there, all right? So I think I come from a very high labor cost country. Now, you have to run this analysis yourself to see which system works for you. So you know what your labor cost is, you know what your material cost is, what technologies work for you. But Krishna and your academics here at Prasada can help you work out what systems to use to ensure that your short-term gains and your long-term gains are achievable. How can technology help? Yes, develop your own indigenous technologies. There are lots of very simple technologies, very common sense technologies that are very sustainable. All right? Think about your vernacular architecture. 100 years ago, you lived in houses that were not air conditioned. But today, everyone wants to air condition the house. You seal your entire building and you air condition it. That's not very sustainable. Thank you very much. Any other questions? That's it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Professor Chan, for the response. So for the second question,
The next question asks, how can Indonesia government and
okay. Thank you for Professor Chen for your thoughtful response. So we have the question for Professor Chen. Okay, for the first question, in your experience, what are the key risks that government in developing countries face when entering public-private partnership for infrastructure projects, and how can these risks be mitigated to ensure project success? And for second question, how can PPP models be adapted to ensure that infrastructure projects not only meet economic objectives, but also align with sustainability goals in the long term, especially in rapidly growing economies like Indonesia? And for the third question, how can effective communication between government, private companies, and local communities enhance the success of PPP infrastructure projects, particularly when balancing environmental sustainability with economic development? Could you share your insight on this, Professor Chen?
Okay. Thank you for these questions. Regarding question one, actually in the PPP arrangement, I think the private sector actually face much more risk than the government. But this question is about, what are the key risks the government may face? To me, I think actually, normally in a PPP project, I think the government may because it has a much more bargaining power than the private enterprise in risk assignment. So I think that the risk is about its behavior. It cannot put too much risk upon the private enterprise. Then the both sides may sit together and negotiate how the risks could be assigned in a right manner. So the government must reasonably assign the risks to the private sector. But usually the government has a risk that they cannot assign the risks properly just because of its bargaining power. I think to me, that's the risk of risk assignment. That's the key risk. Second, actually some people talk about green PPP or sustainable PPP. But to me, PPP is just kind of institutional design. Per se, it's not green or not. So it's all about the project itself, is green or not, sustainable or not. So it's not about it's nothing about the PPP itself. It's about what is the project we choose to apply PPP modality. So that's the question about how we choose projects. It's not about the PPP procedure. The third one, no matter it's communication or not, actually, I think as I mentioned just now, when you choose to prioritize different infrastructure projects, you should put a more emphasis upon those which can have a more economic development implication. That's a case. So, but when you apply the PPP method, I think you should put it on a fast track basis. So make it move fast, because the PPP procedure is pretty complex and lengthy. So sometimes the government agency, or the private sector may lose their patience in conducting a project. So it's important to keep the momentum and get everything to be done as soon as possible. So again, that's about how to conduct it. But the method itself, I mean, as a PPP, I think it has nothing to do with the sustainability. That's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Chen. We have the next question.
Okay, thank you very much for three of you of presentation. I think it is an interesting topic, and maybe I would like to ask 2-3 presenter. For the first Prof. Chen, yeah, I think PPP is very interesting discussion, yeah, but as infrastructure demands grow in developing countries, PPPs are increasingly seen as a practical solution to bridge funding gaps and leverage private sector enterprise, yeah, and expertise. However, implementing PPPs for sustainable infrastructure pose in on challenge, including financial risk and also long-term sustainability, and also about the conflict between public and private. How, for your experience, what is about the challenge? Yeah, about the challenges. How to manage about three challenges, yeah, long-term sustainability, financial instability, and also conflict between public and private. And for Associate Professor Chan, I have one question. If I have question of conflict about between public and private, I have a question about the conflict between architect and civil engineers. Yeah, because I am from architect engineer, and we often perceive as problem maker in design. Maybe in your experience, you have maybe you have a message for the architect to integrate between architect and civil engineer to create the sustainable construction, especially. And for Professor Krishna, especially about the Y.A.I, yeah, the ambitious, I think it is an ambitious project for a sustainable construction. And for the South perspective, I'm afraid the project is can be implement can implement the sustainable project. Yeah, mangkrak. Yeah, in my perspective, it is. I'm afraid it is not sustainable project. What is your perspective? Okay, thank you. My name is Puspita Dewi. I'm a architecture lecturer. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to reflect upon your opinion about the major challenges in PPP. I totally agree with you with the top 3 challenges you mentioned. But how to mitigate those challenges? To me, I think many people neglect some very important aspect of PPP. The name of PPP give you kind of impression there are only 2 parties to a PPP arrangement, the public side and private side. Actually, there's a third one. That's the banks. Okay, so the government, the sponsor, and the banks, they should work together. So, like the 3 challenges, either the long-term or the financial burden or whatever, that's mainly related to the banks, the finance sector. So this important role cannot be neglected when we're designing the institution for a PPP project or how we work on the site. The second important aspect of PPP that can easily neglected is about the partnership. Regarding PPP, sometimes we just say PP, that's it. But there's a third P, that's partnership. So the 3 parties or the 2 parties, they are equal. They are partners. They need to work together. So just the contract cannot pull down all the requirements to make a successful PPP. So the working relationships are also very important. So each party must pay attention to that. And they cannot do everything just from their own perspective. They must do that from the perspective of partnership. That means all 3 of them. That's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, yes, very good question. Architects hate engineers, engineers hate architects. We can't change that. What we can change is make sure that the architects know the implications of their designs. So this is where construction management comes in. I teach into the construction program. Mike here is an architect who did some of my courses, so he understands how his designs are being translated into construction. So you become a better architect if you understand construction. And I think engineers do that as well, need that training as well. So you can imagine, right, when the engineers went through $500,000 worth of testing, and all that money was wasted because they didn't think from a contractor's perspective that it was not possible to deliver that solution. So I'm not saying only the architects are wrong, the engineers were also wrong. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the questions about the IKN or the future capital of Indonesia. I think from the perspective of sustainability, the planners of the IKN, they have already thought about at least partially, each of the infrastructure that will be built or was already built there should follow some principal sustainability aspect. For example, just now we saw the water supply system that was planned to be sustainable using the rainwater and recyclings of the water. I think many components of them are already thought to be sustainable, but always with the experience from Pak TK, for example, sustainable can be very expensive, yeah. But if you understand that there are 3 components of sustainability actually, that the first one is economic aspect, yeah, is economic sustainability, that all you invest in terms of money should bring return, uh, uh, bring returns to the infrastructures, to the operators. Yeah. And of course, for the sustainability technology, until now the technology is still higher than the traditional technology. Then we must think of how to maximize the revenues or the benefit of the investment, yeah, in terms of the infrastructure sustainability. So we have to think long term, very long term, that we cannot expect that it will return you in terms of green benefit, for example, in short time. We have to always look at the longer term. And sometimes most of us are not patient to see that. And when we say that, I think ICAN will not be completed or will be abandoned in the future. Let's be patient. We have to think about long-time benefit of our new capital. Yeah. Because why the government, for example, decided to move the capital? That's not only for political reasons, but there is also uh, many sustainability issues there related, comparing, for example, to the existing. Of course, Pak TK mentioned that the most sustainable approach to capital investment is to use the existing, existing, existing facilities. Yeah, but in the long term, maybe that existing facilities may not be very sustainable also. So we have to think other ways. But we must understand that it is not like turning your hand. In short time, it will prove that it is successful. The key to this is to having the patience and long-term visions to this initiative. Yeah. I think this is very normative what I'm answering your questions, but that is the way that we should look into this kind of initiative. I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for Professor Tong Kwan Chan and Professor Krishna, also Professor Chan, for answering all of the questions. We deeply appreciate the knowledge and experience you share with us today. Okay. At this time, we kindly invite all our esteemed speakers to please return to your seat as well prepare to close the session.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of today's guest lecture, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Professor Krishna S. Pribadi, Associate Professor Tong Kwan Chan, and Professor Chuan Cheng for sharing their invaluable knowledge and insight on sustainable infrastructure development. Their contributions have truly enriched our understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this vital field. We also extend our deep appreciation to all participants for your active engagement throughout the event. We hope that today's discussion have provided you with new perspective and ideas that will inspire your future endeavors. On behalf of the organization committee, we thank you for your presence and participation. We look forward to seeing you at the future event. Please don't forget to join us for the refreshment outside the hall. Thank you. Thank you once again and have a wonderful afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we officially conclude, we would like to invite the Faculty of Engineering members, LPPM officials, and our distinguished guest, Professor Krishna S. Pribadi, Associate Professor Tong Kwan Chan, and Professor Chang Chen for a dedicated research collaboration discussion. This discussion will take place in the seminar room, located right next to this auditorium.